Hey everyone, it's Steve from the Board Game BBQ. Today I'm going to talk about two games because they're both against each other in the board game bracket second round, and I put both of them up. So we've got Champions of Midgard, the excellent worker placement Viking themed game where you go and fight monsters. You sail across the high seas to fight monsters, or you chase trolls out of the town, or Draugr, or you go up in the mountains to fight the Birdrazar. Or you might even die and go to Valhalla and then get help from the gods. So that's Champions of Midgard, a fantastic game, up against probably the best two-player battle game I'm aware of, which is Dice Throne. Dice Throne, I love playing this. My son and I play it a lot. My wife and I, actually, it was our first game we've ever played in a board game cafe, and we had a great time. Basically, you've got dice. You're rolling the dice to get combos. The better combos do the more damage or heal the more as you go. You start with 50 health points and you're just whittling away your opponent down to 0 before you do. Really, really good at two-player, but can play bigger numbers. Definitely best at 2, where Champions of Midgard's probably best at 3 or 4. So, facing off in the bracket, I have to decide which one of these I want to vote for, and so do you. So, because I put both these games up and I was the only one who put them up, I thought I'd just give a brief review of both. So, if I was to list my top 8 games, which was the 8 games I put onto the bracket, these ones would be battling it out for like position 4 or 5. They're really up there. They're two of my favorite games of all time, obviously. But they both serve a completely different purpose. So I love the taking spots and thinky nature of Champions of Midgard, where you have to be aware of where your opponents are. Going first is such a big deal because there are limited spaces. Also, the idea that your workers or your warriors are your dice, so you have to make sure you've got enough to go and actually fight all the battles that you set yourself up for. It's a good strategy to spread yourself, but you can't spread yourself too thin, otherwise you'll never end up winning anything. Or the opposite, if you just go after one space with all of your dice, then you're not going to get a lot of things done in your turn. So really good, really... No, I don't want to say complex. It's not a complex game at all, but it's a really good thinky game. And my wife continually beats me at this game, which is probably why it's one of her favorites. Whereas Dice Throne, this is probably the most balanced asymmetric player power game I've ever seen. So what I mean by that is that each of the players in the game, there's 6 in this main box. There's also Season 2, which I think brings another 8 characters. And there's also a couple of extra ones coming with the Kickstarter for Dice Throne Adventures. But from what I have seen, it doesn't matter which 2 you put against each other. The game is super balanced. Very rarely do I see someone win by more than 5. And by that I mean someone gets to 0, but the other person's on 5. Usually within 1 turn of defeat is when someone wins at Dice Throne. So that's super competitive. And they've got these warriors that are so balanced but also so different. So for example, the Pyromancer, she throws fire everywhere, and she'll actually get negatively affected sometimes by her own fire, as will the Barbarian with his onslaught. But at the same time, you've got characters like the monk, who uses his chi to deflect. So you might have this battle where you've got someone who's just all out attack versus someone who's all out defense, and it goes for 2 hours because it's such an epic battle of, big hit, big defense, carry on. No one really does any damage, and then the good defender does a small hit, so it doesn't really affect the big hitter. So that could go on. But then you could have games where it's the Barbarian versus the Pyromancer, for example, and it's just all-out battle, and it's over in 10 minutes because they're just destroying each other. I really like that, the way that this game is set up. You can really just pick anyone and have a chance at winning. So, it's a tough one, this one. I'm not looking forward to this battle at all, but I do know that at least one of these games will go through to round 3, so that's exciting. If I was to make a choice right now, today, I'd probably lean towards Dice Throne. I know that Dice Throne's got a lot of content on its way, so Dice Throne Adventures. I'm also getting the new updated Season 1, so I've got a lot to look forward to with Dice Throne. Not that I don't with Champions of Midgard. I still haven't played Reavers of Midgard, which is the follow-on from this, but if you ask me to play either of these games, it's always going to be a yes. So today it's Dice Throne. Tomorrow it might be Champions of Midgard. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to vote for one on the Facebook page and the other on the Instagram page. So in the end, I vote for both. But Now it's time for you to have your say. So, as usual, if you would like to vote in the Board Game Barbecue bracket, head to our Facebook community. That's the Board Game Barbecue community on Facebook. Find the post that is relevant to both Dice Throne and Champions of Midgard and cast your vote there. You can also find it in our Instagram story as well. And because this is a bit of a unique battle where it's me versus me, we won't be fighting this one out on the podcast. We will be mentioning it, but it obviously won't have the same impact as when it's one person versus another because they're both my battles. So there you go. Cast your vote. We'll see how it ends up. See you on the next podcast. Cheers.